Sirius XM NASCAR Radio.
NASCAR News now.
NASCAR introduced a new rules package for short tracks and road courses that'll take effect next week at Phoenix Raceway. NASCAR's Vice President of Vehicle Performance, Eric Jacuzzi, was a guest with Dave Moody on Sirius XM Speedway and explained how the sanctioning body got to the new rules package.
We got some great feedback from the drivers that, hey, the car, it just does some of these things so well and so much better that tends to not lead to a lot of mistakes and things like that. So we said, let's see what we can do there. And hopefully this is a step in that direction. We'll continue to work on that. We've got a great partner in Goodyear as well. We've thrown some ideas at them to look at in the future. But this was a start we could do that didn't cost much to the teams, and we were able to implement quickly.
Harrison Burton's crew chief at the Wood Brothers is Brian Wilson. He joined us earlier here today on the Morning Drive and shared his thoughts about the new rules.
Applaud NASCAR for trying something. A little bit selfishly, we ended the year pretty strong in the short tracks. We were very strong at Martinsville, finished 11th. We were, top 20 all day at Phoenix. So, I feel like we had a pretty strong short track package. So we'll see how this impacts that. But, overall, I feel like we had to try something there. Through our Team Penske Alliance, we've got some information from the Phoenix test where they tried that. Obviously it's going to be a lot less downforce. It puts it in the driver's hands, which I think any driver is going to welcome that.
Sirius XM is your home for the NTT IndyCar Series. Tonight at 6 Eastern. Don't miss the season debut of Sirius XM's exclusive show, Brick by Brick, as 2013 Indy 500 champ Tony Kanaan and Jack Arute preview the 2023 season and get you all set for Sunday's Firestone Grand Prix of St. Petersburg. Brick by Brick, tonight at 6 Eastern on NBC Sports Audio Channel 85 and the SXM app. That's the Morning Drive news for Wednesday, March 1st, 2023. I'm Pete Pistone.
Now,
a power move, battle for the lead now, tightens up in turn 3. He'll dive to the bottom. He's going for the lead. Hard, strong power move to the bottom of the racetrack.
Now, this week's edition of Pistol Pete's Power Rankings.
The NASCAR Cup Series raced into the second week of the season, and after last Sunday's trip to Auto Club Speedway, here are the look at the power rankings. Two drivers have dropped out from last week's post-Daytona 500 power rankings. Those two drivers' names are Christopher Bell and Ryan Blaney. So a couple of new faces inside the top 10. Let's start in the number 10 position with one of those new faces. He is now 16th in the Cup Series point standings. It's Chase Elliott, who had a very nice rebound from a disappointing Daytona 500. He started almost at the rear of the field on Sunday, raced his way through the pack, and wound up finishing second to Kyle Busch at Auto Club Speedway. So a good second race for Chase Elliott, the number 9 team at Hendrick Motorsports. He comes in number 10 in the power rankings. We'll go to number 9, a guy who drops one spot. He was 8th last week in the power rankings. He sits 9th in the Cup Series point standings. It's Denny Hamlin, who had a nondescript 6th place finish Sunday in Fontana for Hamlin. The Joe Gibbs Racing driver did lead 3 times for 11 laps, but he really wasn't in the picture to win the race, settling for a still solid top 10 performance. So number 9 in the power rankings, Denny Hamlin. We'll go to number 8, guy who drops 3 spots. He was number 5 after the Daytona 500. It's Chris Buescher. The Roush Fenway Kozlowski Racing driver has opened up the season with a pair of pretty good performances. He led 42 laps in the Daytona 500, and he followed that up with a 13th place performance at Auto Club Speedway. 6th in the point standings, 8th in the power rankings. It is Chris Buescher. We'll go to number 7, same spot as he was a week ago in the number 7 position. It's Alex Bowman, and the Hendrick Motorsports driver out of the gate with a couple of top 10 finishes here to start the season. He led 17 laps in Fontana, and he took the checkered flag Sunday afternoon in 8th place. Alex Bowman up to 3rd in the NASCAR Cup Series point standings, and he comes in number 7 this week in the power rankings. We'll go to number 6, and he's up a few spots. Last week he was 9th. It is Daniel Suarez, and this season is the first in his Cup career that Suarez has opened up the schedule with back-to-back top 10 finishes. He gave the Trackhouse Racing couple of drivers in the top 5 this past week, taking the checkered flag in 4th on Sunday. Daniel Suarez up to 5th in the point standings, so he comes in number 6 this week in the power rankings, and that takes us to the top 5.
Number 5.
Top 5, the guy that won the Daytona 500 last week drops down to the number 5 spot. He was 2nd last week. That is Ricky Stenhouse Jr., and still off to one of his strongest starts in the Cup Series, winning the Daytona 500, 12th place at Fontana, a nice follow-up to winning the Great American Race. He is 7th in the point standings, so, Mike, he went from number 1 in the power rankings, but still not a bad way to start the year for JTG Daugherty Racing.
I was concerned when that race started on Sunday and the old parachute came flying out of the back of that 47 car. He faded pretty quick off the start and then was able to rebound, and things seemed to level out there. But at the beginning of the race, I had some cause for concern. Him and Seabell both started to fall back there. But at least he was able to rebound, and I would say that even though he finished 12th, it's still a good start to the season for that team. Question is, what can they do to Vegas when they get there this weekend?
I mean, and these are the kinds of tracks that we talked about that you want to see improvement from anybody, even though you won the Daytona 500. When you have good runs at Fontana, if they can back that up at Vegas and have a nice finish to the West Coast swing at Phoenix Raceway, certainly that'll go a long way for JTG Daugherty Racing. So, number 5 in the power rankings, Ricky Stenhouse Jr.
Number 4.
Trouble down the back straightaway. One car is completely sideways, lots of white smoke, and it looks like he's going to come to a stop without hitting the inside wall. It's so much smoke, I can't pick up a number on the car, but it went completely sideways right just before the middle of the back straightaway.
Brad Keselowski, the driver who made the spin up off of turn number 2.
That was the MRN broadcast you heard here Sunday on SiriusXM NASCAR Radio, describing some of the day, not a good part of the day, for the driver who was number 10 last week in the power rankings, but moves all the way up to number 4 this week, Brad Keselowski. And as we mentioned with Chris Buescher, the trajectory for Roush Fenway Keselowski Racing definitely on the upswing. Keselowski battled through a day of some of that adversity you just heard there to post a 7th place and a top 10 finish. Last year after Daytona, he did not have a top 10 till June. So already another top 10 for Brad Keselowski. So both he and Chris Buescher in the power rankings this week. Baggy?
Well, just stop and think about this. Like, they got that big penalty to start the year off, and it buried them in points. They were 30th in points, and 100 points and $100,000 and all that stuff. I mean, I would say that with what they put together so far, considering that they got a top 10 out of the challenges on Friday, or on Sunday, I should say, and then just where they are compared to last year, I would say that progress has already been made, and we've not even gotten to race 3. I mean, Brad's 10th in points. He's in the mix. Now, can he continue that? I like that top 10 over the weekend from that number 6 car, and also the good run from the team car there in the 17 with Chris Buescher.
And that's the thing. You pair them both up. They are both off to very, very solid starts, and we'll see if they have another performance like the one they had this past week at Auto Club Speedway coming up Sunday at Las Vegas Speedway. So number 4 in the power rankings, Brad Keselowski.
Number 3.
Now a challenge for the lead. Denny Hamlin goes all the way down to the bottom of the racetrack to try to block Logano. Can't do it, head into 1.
Logano, a full head of steam into turn 1. He's got the lead. Denny Hamlin gets drop kicked back to the 2nd spot. William Byron rides in 3rd. He's feeling a challenge now from Ross Chastain. First 4 are single file formation off the corner.
More of the MRN broadcast from Sunday, talking about some of the day for the driver who was number 1 last week in the power rankings, but he drops down to number 3 this week. Indeed, it is Joey Logano. And the Team Penske driver, he was a fixture at the front of the field for most of Sunday afternoon, but he faded as the checkered flag got a little bit closer, and at the end of the day, Logano ended his Auto Club Speedway career on that 2-mile track with a top 10 finish. So he is 2nd in the point standings. And as he told us yesterday on Behind the Wheel, a race car that, for whatever reason, started to get away from him handling-wise, and he went from a top 5 finish to a top 10, but still not a bad way to start the year for Logano.
Yeah, Joey told us he got some damage on the underside of that race car, and just what a beating that race car took. And he was glad, he said the last run and a half or so is when they found that damage. And he's glad that it was then and not earlier in the day, because he said they wouldn't have even finished in the top 20. So all things considered, I think they're lucky to get out of Fontana with as good a finish as they did. Now, we're going to the promised land for him this weekend. He always runs Las Vegas well. So perhaps maybe they can start stringing together some performance if they can keep the car intact.
Yeah, again, remember, he won the last time the series was there in the fall, Joey Logano, so we'll see if he can go back-to-back. On Sunday, he is number 3 in the power rankings.
Number 2.
Trying to do exactly what he did in stage number 1, and that's steal the victory. He's going to do it easily here in stage 2. Chastain across the line. Green and white checkered flag is out, and he won stage 1. He backs it up. He wins stage 2.
Jeff Striegel from the MRN broadcast talking about the driver who was number 3 last week in the power rankings. We're going to move him up to number 2 this week, and that is Ross Chastain. As you heard, a couple of stage wins and a race-high 91 laps led punctuated Chastain's strong day in Fontana that ended up with a top 5 finish, and it certainly appears that Trackhouse Racing train, Baggy, has not lost any steam after last season, after what you saw from both Daniel Suarez and now Ross Chastain.
I think that was a statement race for Trackhouse last week. A statement saying, we're still here. You're still going to have to contend with us. It looked like Ross was going to win the race, but by sweeping the stages, finishing in the top 5, I would say, while it's disappointing for them that they didn't get the win, it's still a successful day on that 2-mile racetrack out there in Fontana. Trackhouse, in my opinion, still firmly in the conversation here in 2023, like they were at the end of last year.
And 2 races are in the books, and Ross Chastain on top of the NASCAR Cup Series point standings. But the man on top of the mountain here in the power rankings is another new face.
Number 1.
Kyle Busch can see the checkered flag from here.
His first win came here. His 61st win will come here at the Auto Club Speedway for Kyle Busch. New driver, new organization combination, and it turns out to be a winning combination as Kyle Busch has scored the win in the Paula Casino 400.
Yeah, just took 2 points races, and Kyle Busch brought Richard Childress Racing a trip to victory lane. He picked up the win there Sunday, as you heard, his 61st career win in the Cup Series, and now he and his brother Kurt are the winningest pair of siblings in NASCAR history with 95. So a guy that came this close to winning the Daytona 500 was able to get the victory lane the next week, and Kyle Busch, Baggy, on top of the power rankings.
Well, I mean, what a rebound from the challenges of the Daytona 500, almost having a shot to win from that, and then going to Fontana and sending a statement as well, going from unranked in your power rankings to the number 1 seat. And I think that he should be the number 1 guy heading into Las Vegas this weekend. You can see those power rankings on the Sirius XM Sports blog. I think all those make sense. I think that based on the short framework that you have in which to work, I would say that, yeah, all those are on point. Although now we'll see what we get this weekend. We'll see if folks can hold pace, hold serve, stand pat as they were, or will we have more challenges and more shakeups in next week's power rankings? I
was surprised about one of the 2 guys dropping out, Bell and Blaney, and I'm surprised about Bell because I thought Bell obviously would have had a better day, but it was just a victim of circumstance, getting caught up in that restart chain reaction accident there on the front straightaway. Unfortunately, the Sirius XM Toyota was pretty much done for the day there, but I thought C-Bell was going to have a better day, and so out of the 2 guys that got knocked out, remember Blaney last week at Daytona, was able to take a really battered and bruised race car to a top 10 finish and stayed in the power rankings doing so. He didn't have a good day either on Sunday, but we'll see if Christopher Bell and Ryan Blaney, both those guys, can rebound in Vegas and see if next week at this time they're back in the top 10 in the power rankings.
Again, the SiriusXM Sports blog is your destination to see Pistol Pete's Power Rankings. Coming up, we've got the calendar. We've got more conversation with you, Daniel Dye, and more coming up in the back half of the show.